tell me your name?
My name is Gladiator. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance.
Today I saw a slave become more powerful than the Emperor of Rome.
They said you were a giant. I shall cheer for you.
At my signal, unleash hell.
What we doing live? Echoes in eternity.
Allow me to introduce myself. Harry Winston. I am a historian at Cambridge University, and I have analysed this movie for your viewing pleasure. I know you're all dying to see what I have come up with, so I will not hesitate and enlighten you now. In my extensive research, I have found that although many of Gladiator's themes and locations are based on actual historical occurrences, Ridley Scott, the movie's director, twisted history to make a story that would have both dramatic and thrilling effects, and that would fit into an average viewer's attention span. For example, many details added in Gladiator were there to make the story of the succession and demise of Commodus more appealing than it actually was. In addition, the protagonist, Maximus, was a creation of Scott's to show what devastating effects Commodus' rule had. Finally, the entire story of Commodus' rule was adapted to fit into a period that covered less than a year, so it could be told more easily. Commodus would have become much more of an antagonist if he was shown killing his father in order to become emperor. It would make him seem more merciless than he actually was. Commodus would not have seemed as much of a tyrant if Marcus Aurelius, his father, had willingly given him the crown. The common Hollywood theme, good always triumphs over evil, was exemplified by the death of the evil Commodus in the hands of the good Maximus. If one had seen him killed by the Senate, it would have minimalized Maximus' importance to the film. Maximus was a Roman general who never actually existed and was added to the plot of Gladiator as a general who fell from glory and was victimized by the evil and cruel Emperor Commodus. Maximus was the tragic hero of the movie. In the true story of Commodus' rule, there was no great hero, so Maximus had to be created. Commodus' cruelty would not have been exhibited as well if there was not one person who he had singled out to ruin. Commodus' character developed more easily because of Maximus. It would have taken longer to see the struggle of many men with Commodus than just with one. There would have been much less of the dramatic effect if Commodus had not had one single enemy. Commodus was on the throne for 12 years, unlike in the movie, where he is shown to have been emperor for less than a year. Many aspects of his rule were changed. Commodus was known for appointing favourites to important government positions. This use of power was not mentioned in the film. Commodus was then made out to be more terrible than he actually was. Commodus was definitely a cruel emperor, but not all of his inhumane acts were committed in such a short amount of time.
You see, my wife and my son are already waiting for me.
I'll meet them again. But not yet. Not yet. Yes.
Ridley Scott's adaptation of the end of the Pax Romana was changed so that Gladiator's viewers would see Rome's famous gladiatorial fights, as well as his benevolent and cruel emperors, some of whom brought down the empire. However, the movie stretches many aspects of the emperors and the people in the empire to an extent, but an extent enough that it could easily be seen as a fictionalization. The movie differed a lot from the actual events of the time. However, there were some aspects that really happened. Being, of course, a famous historian, it is my duty to pass on my knowledge. The fight you are seeing now never did occur. However, Commodus was a gladiator himself, and he was very fond of these events. Like in the movie, there would be a lot of animals fighting. This type of event was called a venation. Since the more games were given to the mob, the better they'd follow, Commodus had a lot of these, just like in the actual movie. Women actually did fight in gladiatorial events, and they were considered a big attraction, and many men would come to watch them. Bread was also given out to the mob to please them before gladiatorial events. However, in the movie, there were a lot of things that did not really happen. Marcus Aurelius died by an infection disease on his farm. In the movie, he was smothered by his son Commodus in order to become emperor of his father's first choice, Maximus. In real life, Marcus Aurelius actually always intended for Commodus to be emperor. He just doubted him. And Maximus, of course, was not a real character. In the movie, Rome was depicted as spotless and flawless. In real life, there were many poor living conditions, and the only reason people weren't mad at this was because of the games that distracted them from their everyday lives. In the movie, Commodus sat in a box near the top section of the Colosseum, and women were spread throughout the sections. In real life, seats were arranged in 4 different sections. The bottom seats were used by tribunes, senators, members of the equestrian order, and the emperor. The final sections or rows at the top of the Colosseum were actually where the women sat, along with the lowest classes. Scott's goal was to make a movie for the mob, so he made one about a mob, one that had produced people both good and evil. Scott may have changed some aspects of history, but his changes produced a movie that is a bridge between history and imagination.